I was asked to do a video on the turbo on how to get it removed from the block on the 1.5 liter EcoBoost engine. So what I did here is I pulled a T27 bolt right here out of these cooling lines, and basically it's just they overlap each other. The top line is on top, the bottom line is underneath. Around the corner right here I pulled a 10mm bolt out that holds it into the side of the block, and then up front here I pulled the T27 out in this corner, and now I'm going to get this coolant line out of here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take it out through the back that way. I removed this thermostat house, or this coolant housing and stuff, so as I go to pull this back out of there, I can go ahead and fish these coolant lines out of my way that's in here, because I won't be able to pull it all the way back through. Now that I've popped the two coolant lines loose, I'm going to try to work it through this hole right here. Trying to do this with one hand ain't fun. I'm gonna pull this line out the back here. And I'll go back up here. At this point, all that's left is the turbo, the feed line, and the drain tube down here. Feed line, oil pressure feed line, drain tube on the bottom. And then here is the cat and the turbo together. I'm going to pull them off as one unit. What I've already done is I've already removed the vacuum source for the wastegate. So the vacuum source is removed. The tubes, the induction tube and the pressure tube is removed from the turbo. So now this is literally just the removal part from the block. I'm going to pull this 8mm off, and I'm going to work this tube out of here. There's an 8mm. If you ever wanted to just replace this tube only, there's a way you can do it without removing the turbo. I've pulled the CV axle to do it before. It's just two 13mm bolts, and then pull the CV axle out the passenger side wheel well. Or you can leave it in there. What I do is I use a very long 12 to like 16-inch ratcheting wrench, and I take a 10 Allen and I cut a little chunk off the end of the Allen, just like a cheap Allen from Harbor Freight or something like that. And I'll feed it up behind this turbo. And on the escapes, I can get that Allen in. On the Fusions, you don't have to do that. Pull this 8mm out here. You could get a ratcheting wrench in right here, like a 13mm, 14mm, something like 13, 14, 15, I forget. Might be a 15 actually. And you can get a ratcheting wrench in here and start to crack this thing loose, or you can get a 15 swivel in on an angle after you pull this heat shield out, and you could get that 15mm nut out of there, and then you could feed this tube out on an angle. You could twist it out. Let me show you real quick. Okay, so I got lucky and got this shield off. Sometimes these bolts get stuck, and you know what, I'll be honest with you why it is, and I'll show you one of the main problems with these shields getting stuck on here. From the factory, I'll find like this one tight and this one tight, but then this one and this one will be loose, and all this debris packs up behind it. You can even see on the cover. Where's the cover? Where did I do the cover? Right here. See this one here? Nice and clean, nice and clean. Now look at this one. It's got all that shit debris behind it, and right there it's starting to rust. From the factory, these are coming off the line with a couple of these shield bolts loose, and water's getting in there and literally like rusting these bolts inside the housing, and then when guys go to take them off, they snap the bolts off these turbos. Very, very important to soak these if you're going to do it, or tap them real lightly with a hammer to try to draw anything loose, or heat them up first. From the factory, 2 or 3 of these bolts are typically loose, and they just rust in there. Sometimes even make a fluttering sound. If more than one of them or more than 2 of them are loose, you'll hear this shield tap on this turbo sometimes. Sometimes it's one of the first things I check when I get them in for a sound when they're brand new, is I'll tighten these bolts up, and sure enough, 1, 2, 3 of them are loose on these turbos. So at this point, the shield's off. You can get right to that feed line right there, right from above it. With the shield on, you'd have to come on an angle if you can't get it on. And then it comes up here, the supply line. So let's go ahead. Let's pull the whole turbo together. I don't want to make this more complicated, but on some of these you'll hear this right here. That's a lot of that sound. But on this, because it's only moving right here and the actual pivot point is not moving with it, That's normal. They won't replace that. Eventually it'll happen is this will rattle so much it'll actually start to wear out that center shaft right there as well that pivots back and forth to open up that wastegate. Now that I got the little bolt out, I just kind of took this, stuck back behind it, and just helped wiggle it out. And now you got it right there. Now you could take that, I don't know if it's a 14 or a 15. It's weird because it's been a while since I pulled this out. It looked like a 15 actually, but who the hell knows? I could be wrong. But literally, that's a problem right there too. Look at that. Look how that oil line is sitting right in that block. You'd have to grab it and either bend it a little bit or loosen that up and coming around. Eventually that will rub through the way it's installed from the factory. Eventually that will rub through. Okay, now we're kind of at the final stretch-ish. If you're pulling this out with this engine together in the vehicle and you're trying to follow some of this to help, okay, I get it. These O2 sensors do mount on the back side of this bracket. Just unplug them, just let them hang. That would help. So now you got 4 13mm bolts right here, and then you got a bracket down here. What I want you to do is I want you to pull the bolts out and leave the bracket attached. Pull the bolts out, leave the bracket attached to the catalytic converter. Pull the whole unit off as one. And then over here, 13mm. Pull them out. I think they're 14 or 15 down there. I think of 15. Where are they? Well, 13 actually. 2 13mm and then 4 13mm up here. Let's get it off. So I pulled the 2 13mm bolts out of the bracket down here. And then I went up here and I was like, oh crap, I gotta pull my drain out. I forgot. So I pulled the 3 T27s to pull the drain out. And now I'm gonna pull those last 4. Let me see if I could leave this. And there you go. That's terrible, man. That is terrible. That's pulling the turbo on a stand. So you can take some of that and apply it while you're doing it in the car. Subscriber asked me to do this. I give it to you. There it is. Thanks, guys. Remember, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel.